Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Amanda Doamaral, who's the founder and CEO of Fiveable, an education and technology company committed to unlocking opportunities for young people through high-quality content, supportive communities, and interactive life experiences. Before starting Fiveable, she was a COPS member at Teach for America, and an AP World and AP Human Geography teacher at Skyline High School. The startup has raised more than $4.2 million in known venture capital today from investors including BBG Ventures, Metrodora Ventures, Matchstick Ventures, Cream City Venture Capital, Spero Ventures, and Serena Williams. She's done a bachelor's from Boston University as part of the OnDeck skill program. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So, how did you get your start in startups, and what got you really interested to work there?
Yeah, for me, I was not in the startup world before. I was a teacher. I taught in a high school, a public high school in Oakland. Never really thought that I would go into business or startups or tech, and then it was really just some of my former students that were reaching out to me for support after I had left the classroom that got me really thinking about how tech and building a business online could really scale my impact beyond what I could do in my classroom. And so I really just I just started building and really like looking for a lot of resources to help me kind of piece together all the gaps that I maybe had and how I understood how to do that. But for me, it was really just it just kind of happened to me in a way. Like it just sort of happened overnight.
Interesting. And when you looked at solving the problem of Fiverr, you'd already spent 5 years working as a teacher. Did you look at a problem that it could be a really big market size, and you could really scale it up and make it a tech product?
I definitely did. I think for Fiveable, it was always about when I was in the classroom, the ways that I was supporting students extended beyond the school day, extended beyond the classroom. It wasn't just about, the AP subjects I was helping them with. There was a lot of other layers to that. And at my school, I could see that the ways that the schools in the district were supporting students just wasn't enough. That the gaps for students were just massive. And what my students were experiencing in Oakland was no different than what students would experience in really any city around the world, any place. There are students that have these gaps, and what I knew was that students were already going online to find other students to help them in this like kind of underworld of like student to student support on Reddit and Discord and all these places. And what they needed was a dedicated platform, something that could keep them safe, something that could connect them to each other and help to bridge the gap between what their schools were providing and what they actually needed. And so I knew that the problems I was solving were really for every teenager in the world. But I just sort of started with what I knew, which was AP. And that is a much smaller group. That's 3 million students that felt manageable. And so I kind of went for that first. And now we're thinking about how to scale beyond that.
Got it. And you know, uh, since you have a background as a teacher, and how did you go about getting your initial first customers, and how did you did you also code for your startup?
I don't code. I never thought of myself as technical, but now I do think of myself as technical. I just don't code. So I use a lot of no code tools. And I feel when I was teaching I didn't use too many because it just wasn't something I had access to, but as I started to build, the things that were driving me were how do I create a really good experience for students and how do I reach more students that need this? And so I just started building, different like email campaigns and posting on different social sites and just kind of trying to find where students were and go to those spots. Like they were already congregating, they were already sharing resources, and so just kind of making myself helpful to those communities is how I found the first groups of students. And through teachers and like getting other teachers to share what I was doing with their students. That first group of AP students I supported, there was like I think probably 2,500 kids that year, and they were from around the world. There was a group of students in Dubai that were waking up at 5 a.m. to listen to the streams. There were plenty of students from Oakland. There were students from across the U.S. And so I just kind of went where the students were and kind of like taped together whatever I could with like, using tools that like Teachable, like Zapier, like all these different things that I could then build this platform without actually building the platform.
That's interesting. And when it comes to Fiveable, who creates the study guides, and how do you live stream your sessions?
All the study guides that we have are created by students and teachers. So we have a pretty big group of creators that it's sort of half and half, students and teachers, and everything that gets written is also edited by both a student and a teacher, so that on the teacher side you get authority and it's like factual and correct, and on the student side it's like fun and it speaks the language of students. They add the emojis and the gifs and all those little fun pieces. But all the content we create in-house, and then the live streams are also like by a mixture of students and teachers. The teacher streams are the ones that are paid, and the student streams are free.
Oh, okay, got it. And I've worked for a tech startup where we are solving a problem for students who are preparing for higher education back in India. But before we could get to product market fit, we had already raised funding, and we assumed that it was the students who were the decision makers. But we found out that were the parents who were the decision makers. That when it comes to a specific problem like what you're trying to solve in AP, who do you think is the real customer, and who is the decision maker finally?
Yeah, it's hard. So for us, we made a conscious decision to focus on students. And we did that for a few reasons. One, no one else does. The other ed tech companies in this space, they focus on the teachers and the parents and the schools. And because of that, you have this huge gap where, I mean, the reality is that being a teenager today in 2021 is nowhere near the same thing as it was when I graduated high school in 2008. So even as a young founder, I still have no idea what it's like for actual teenagers today. And so for us, we really wanted to build for the student, and that has allowed us to create different types of solutions that nobody else has, because the students themselves understand online supports and communities and tools way better than we do even, right?
Nice.
So the other thing too is that as teenagers, even though their parents and their schools are decision makers on expensive things, they also have a lot more power in purchasing power than we did when we were that age too. And so what we've created is just pricing our paid products really affordably, so that when you need that live stream because your test is tomorrow, the stream is $5. It's low enough that the student can say, oh, let me just buy this, or hey mom, can I get this? Or sometimes they just get it on their parents' card, and then mom's like, oh, whatever, it's $5 and you needed it to study. And so just really trying to like build into the student habits is what we wanted to do, even though we knew that was going to be hard to connect the pieces. We just felt like it's a missed opportunity that other people have not done.
Interesting. And when you see the payments coming, and is it usually the parents or the children who are paying for that?
It's divided. It's pretty split, and it always just sort of depends on, like, a lot of students have an Apple Wallet now, or like they have cards, right? They have
Right.
access to capital, or they have a PayPal account, and so just allowing students to pay with the capital that they have. We can see a lot of different variations. Like sometimes it's the parents paying, sometimes it's the students, sometimes the school pays. Like sometimes a teacher will say, hey, I want to get this for my 30 students. Cool. So like those are, we have to be able to offer all those different options. But at the end of the day, it's the student that we want to build for. I don't want to build for the parent. I don't want to build for the school. Other people can do that. I want to make sure that we are speaking directly to the students and building the product that they want. And if it's also sort of like, if any adult in their life tells them to sign up, it's automatically not cool, right? Like they don't want to, just because my parents told me to or my teacher told me to, that doesn't mean that I want to be there. But if my friend told me to sign up, it's still cool. So we're trying to like stay in the like kind of like cool space too. So it's always a fine line for us, but it's important that we do that.
Right, interesting. And you're solving the market for 3 million teenagers. How many students does Fiveable have currently?
So we of the 3 million AP students, one like fun fact is that this month we just passed 1 million users on our site, which is the first time we've ever done that. And by the end, we're not sure where we're going to end up by the end of this month, but we are now reaching 1 million users in a month. And so how many of those students, I think a lot of those students are AP students, but we're also seeing a lot of students starting to come to us too for outside of AP.
Okay.
Just kind of attracting students through different content and resources that they need. But like I said, like we just go straight to the students, and so we're not really counting the schools, although we do see students from really across the world.
Interesting. And are these million users, are they all active, and are they all paid customers?
Yeah, they're active, but they're not necessarily paid customers. So a lot of the content and the resources we have are free,
Free.
and then the like the crams and the live streams are paid. And so it's kind of a freemium model where most of the students that are on our platform are using different free resources like study rooms or things like that.
Correct. And when you look at growth marketing strategies, how did you scale up to, from 2,500 customers to 2 million users? Are you using a lot on paid acquisition?
No, for us, we mostly use SEO and referrals, and so the number one growth mechanism for us in the channel is definitely like creating content and ranking on Google. I from the early days, I wanted to be where students are, and when they are doing their homework, they're Googling things, they're Googling those keywords, and so we just started building out content to meet those keywords, and that's driven a lot of our traffic growth. And then the second piece of that is definitely through referrals and students who invite other students to study rooms or tell other students to go and study here. So that we've seen those two be the top acquisition channels for us.
Interesting. And it's very interesting that you have your headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Why did you start your startup there, and does it make sense to work in smaller ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, I was originally I grew up on the East Coast. I taught on the West Coast, and so I wasn't based in Milwaukee forever. But we came here 2 years ago for an accelerator that we did called Generator. And after the accelerator finished, we just decided to stay because we felt like we had met a lot of people. There is very much a growing startup ecosystem here. We felt like it also is a smaller, like, this smaller vibe. And so because of that, we could be kind of like, big fish in the small pond. Whereas if we moved to New York or San Francisco, we're not the only ed tech company. Now we're competing for, attention. But in Milwaukee, it kind of sets us apart. It makes us different. And so and it's affordable. And so I think when you're building a startup, I think you're sort of balancing all of those different factors. And for us, it just really made sense to stay here and to build here.
Yeah, interesting. And sometimes when you're working in a smaller ecosystem, is it a challenge for you to scale up the team and get high quality people for your team?
Not when we're remote. So because we are a fully remote company, we have people who work with us from everywhere. But us two founders and a couple of the other people on the team are in Milwaukee. So we've been able to just kind of build a 100% online culture for our company and hiring people from anywhere, while also having like our kind of HQ in Milwaukee.
And does the complexity change with time when you're scaling your team, especially the initial few members are generalist, but when you want to focus on scaling up your team, you have people who have to be generalist. What are your thoughts on that?
It definitely changes over time. I think now we're at 20 people now. The first few people that you hire, you're kind of you're like in it together, you're in the trenches. We didn't necessarily pay ourselves then. We definitely all were working. We were all marketing, we're all product, we're all, content, we're all part of those things. And then as we've grown, we've just had to get really clear on what it looks like to work at Fiveable, what kinds of folks we need, whether that's the skills we need or also like, what we want people to care about. What is the like, ideal candidate? What is the ideal person to work on this team? It's very different in the early days, like what you need versus what we need now. And now we're sort of like planning to grow beyond where we are now, and that will continue to change. Like even just the people who join a company when it's like 4 people are very different than the people who join a company when it's 50, 100 and beyond. There's a different level of risk that people are willing to take, and we've had to just kind of adjust over time.
Correct. And how do you look at evaluating risk, especially when it comes to making decisions? And what has been your attitude towards risk, especially during the times of pandemic?
Yeah, I think that me personally, like I'm not very averse to risk. Like I've always been kind of a risk taker. That's just sort of who I am. But I also think, as I've gotten older, that has also matured too. And like it also has always been about like how much do I have to lose?
Right.
And so the more we grow, the more we have to lose. So then the more we will be like, I'll balance that. But in the early days, there are like specific times where I can remember there being this like fork in the road of, okay, that's the risky decision, that's the safer decision. And I just took the risk. I just kept going that path. There was one moment where I had to decide either I could kind of keep doing things as I was doing and building on my own, or I could invest in trying to hire more people. If I do that, we're going to run out of money faster, but we could grow faster. Right. So, like, just kind of weighing the upside and the risk on that. And every step of the way, I just was like, well, like, I got nothing to lose. I want to reach more students. I want to see what happens. Let's do it. Let's try to hire people. And that, those decisions were the best decisions because I found people who could help me and we were able to grow faster. And so I feel like in the early days I just kind of went for it, and still today there's definitely moments where, like we just acquired a company called Ours,
Yeah.
and again, acquire the company or don't acquire the company, right? There's risk involved in both. There's upsides involved in both decisions. Like, how do I weigh that as a founder? I have to think about what will be best for us and be okay with like kind of stepping into an unknown space because I really think it will get us into a better space.
Right. Interesting. You talked about Ours, which is I think built by a 16-year-old Calix. Was that acquisition more about how do you grow your customer base, or was it an addition to a product?
It's definitely it was a big part of it was about product. I mean, I think the what really impressed me about Calix was just the way that he was thinking about the same problems that we were, right? How do students learn together online? That was what I've always been building around, and that's what he's been working on too. And he, as a student, knows better than I do, right? Like he's in it right now. He's 16, living during a pandemic, built this tool for him and his friends, scaled it to include more and more students from around the world. And the more we saw what he was doing, the more we just could see that was part of the future that students were going to gravitate to anyways. And so we really wanted to bring him and Ours into the Fiveable ecosystem so that we could, continue to give students the best experience possible, like driven by that student vision.
Correct. And I believe Kalex will also be part of the team. Uh, and how do you look at senior hires, especially in the leadership team? How do you look at them managing the team, especially if you have a very young workforce?
So our team is unique because we have students in every department. We actually have about 120 student interns right now. Those
Oh,
are all paid students, all mostly high school, if not like just barely in college. And it creates this vibe on the team that everyone on our team, whether they are the CEO or all the way to like any employee, they work directly with students, and there's this respect that happens because of that. It's not We don't see young people as like that they don't know what they're doing or that we are better than them. Like we just don't see that at all. We see them as like very inspiring, high growth potential people, and we want them to be a part of our team, and that kind of creates this vibe that we're very collaborative across the different teams and across from a full-time person to a student. As we grow, we're definitely going to be leaning more into some more like senior hires in the next year plus. Just really kind of building out some of the top layers of Fiveable too. But no matter what, even those hires are still going to work directly with students too. It's so important because every little decision that we make, even if we feel like it's small, a student has an opinion on it, and I want to know what that is because sometimes it's completely different than what I would think, and I want to know why, and then that can inform a better decision.
yeah, I think it's super interesting that you had students who like the decision makers and your real customers in your team. But are they working part time with the company as like intern, or working full time?
They work part time. I mean, even Calix, like he's at school. They go to school, so the most that they work is like 10 hours a week for most of the students, because they're full time students. And so if you think about it, like when I was their age, I worked at a party store. I worked at Staples. Like I had retail odd jobs, babysitter. This is sort of like the new thing. Like these are kids that are heading into a world that is remote, that is online, that is very tech enabled, and so we're able to now teach them in their part time jobs how product works and marketing and social media and building no code tools and how to be on a Slack team. It's like they're learning all these skills that we know is actually going to benefit them a lot as they grow up. But they're able to kind of work for 10 hours a week answering chats or thinking about new TikTok things to post, and so they have a blast. I mean, it's like a dream job for them.
Right, right, interesting. A lot of times what happens with startup founders is, uh, they do have self doubt about the product, and sometimes it's it becomes difficult to manage it. How would you advise early stage founders to look at how to grapple with their own self doubt?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I experience that all the time. There's Yesterday I was like, what am I doing? Am I the right person to do this? Like, am I going to figure this out? And the roller coaster is real, and like sometimes you'll feel good one minute and the next minute you don't. I think the thing to remember is just that even the people that we look up to, even the people that have done this before us, that we see as successful, they're just people. They're literally just people, and they're no different than me. They've just done something before I have. They've had to figure it out. They maybe weren't as prepared as I think they are, right? They probably felt the same way. And a lot of times what I find is that I think before I started Fiveable, I thought that there was some prescribed path that you had to do, and there just isn't. There are no rules. There's just people making the best decisions that they can, and that's really all it comes down to. And so I think the more that I've just given myself the space to just step into that and build the confidence for myself, the better, because it just means that I can build anything that I want, and I can show these other students and other founders that they can too. There's nothing stopping us as long as we just do it.
Correct. And are there advantages for being an underrepresented founder, uh, which you would have found in your journey to become an entrepreneur?
I think that the advantage of being an underrepresented founder is that I'm constantly thinking about underrepresented communities. And frankly, like when I think about the world today, I think it is the underrepresented communities that hold so much power and potential for the future. And anyone who's not investing in them is really missing out. And right. And it's like, when, like, if you just think about any groups, whether they're in the US or anywhere in the world, it's like there is this like unharnessed power of people that have been completely underestimated for centuries, if not, it's constant. And these are people, like, for me, I'm building generational wealth here. Like, I don't have, like, money or any kind of like background for my family that is supporting me here. Like, this is like, I'm doing this for all of them. That kind of drive is intense. It's like there's nothing that's going to stop me because of that, and because of the students that I'm fighting for too. And so I think the advantage that I have is that I see that as opportunity. I'm not building a diverse team because I think I have to. I'm building a diverse team because it will set us apart. We have like superpowers because we see the actual potential in people and are building for those communities, and that will always set us apart from non-marginalized founders.
Interesting. And you were able to get Serena Williams and BBG Ventures to invest in your startup. And how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the early days, I never knew exactly how to go about getting investment, and then when I first started, and just kind of build up my skills over time to be able to build a deck and tell the story. But at the end of the day, it's about your ability to communicate what you're building, the progress you've made so far, and what this could be. And that's like every round is like kind of those three things. And that changes over time. What my pitch 2 years ago is very different than my pitch today. But I think the more that I've been able to meet people and build relationships, like, that's huge. Like, it's not just the first time you meet someone that they are writing a check.
Yeah.
You are building over time and showing them that this is real. I'm real. What we're doing is real. This is going to happen. It's inevitable. And this is an opportunity then. And so kind of building up that capacity over time, and then eventually you get people that want to take a risk on you, they want to back you. And I think in the early stage, it's about backing the idea and the team more so than anything else. Like, they see that this is going to exist, and I want to take the bet on this team to do it.
Right. And Amanda, you've been in the solving problem for AP. Would you also look at other different markets, and what does the growth look like for Fiveable in future?
100%. There are 3 million AP students, but there are like a billion teenagers in the world. And
Right.
when I really think about like what they are experiencing, it's actually very similar in any place. It's as a teenager, you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do in my life? How am I going to get there? You're trying to understand the systems around you, whether it's the tests that you have to take, or the, different schools you have to apply for, or the jobs you're trying to look for. You're trying to figure out who you're going to be in the world, and how you're going to make it happen. And I think that that's where Fiveable can really come in, is creating this layer outside of school that makes it so that any young person can figure out the answers to those questions, and can talk to other students that also that understand what they're going through, and can help them. They help each other, like, kind of navigate everything.
Right. And I've been part of OnDeck Podcast Fellowship. It's been a great experience for me. I believe you've also been part of OnDeck Scale Fellowship, and you also had sent over your team to OnDeck for different of the fellowship programs. Why did that happen, and do you think the learning process for teams should happen?
Yeah, I've loved OnDeck because of the community. I mean,
Right.
that's the company that we're building, and that's in a lot of ways the company that OnDeck is building too. It's like for me, I don't necessarily have a lot of other people in my life that know exactly what I'm experiencing.
Right.
But when you join an OnDeck community, all of a sudden you have all these other people that are experiencing the same thing at the same time. And that is what is more powerful than any webinar content, like conference. Like none of those things are as powerful as just like the networks, the people that you can get to know. And so for my experience in OnDeck, that's what's been the best. And I keep looking to sign up as many people on my team as I can, because it gives them a group, then I want to make sure that they all have people that they can talk to, that they can post questions to, say like, hey, we're trying to solve this product problem, like any ideas here? Has anyone used a platform that can do X? They need places to post those types of questions that I can't help them with. So even like Calix is joining the Catalyst program this summer, because there's a lot of young people that are coming together around this model, and that means that he's going to have people to talk to, people who have been acquired before, that can help him understand, how do I integrate into Fiveable? How do I make this the best it can be? That I can help him, but having someone who's actually experienced that he can be friends with, is like 10 times better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the network and community is the best part about OnDeck. And I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
Say that one more time.
What's your favorite business book?
Oh, honestly, I don't read a lot of books. I used to when I was a kid. I read books so much, but I don't anymore. And I think I sort of instead I read a lot, but I read a lot of blogs, articles, newsletters, Twitter threads. I think that those have been the most important for me. Like there's kind of a Twitter ecosystem that I follow. There are a number of different Substacks that I'm subscribed to, and just like other blogs that I'll just go to. People that write on Medium, people that write on their own sites. That there's just a wealth of information out there that feels more up to date, I guess, than books do in a way. But I've found kind of a home in that in those mediums.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with the Twitter threads and Substacks. Some of them are very useful. And if you could go back in time when you started Fiveable, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
I think it's hard, because I think as a first time founder, in some ways that I have no regrets. Like I had to do the things I had to do because I was learning along the way. But if I were to start a company again, I think there's a lot of work up front that you can do to really 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 understand the people that you are building for, and the solutions that will work. I think in our case it's hard because we're kind of a category defining company. Nobody has done what I've done. And
Okay.
so we had to experiment a lot and figure out all these things that wouldn't work. And that has kind of gotten us to where we are now. And so I don't know if there was any way to like shorten that time, but I think it's just a matter of um, being really clear on what you want to build as early as you can.
Right. And do you have any favorite online tools, for example, Gmail, Slack, so on?
Yeah, I mean, I use Notion the most, and Slack and Discord the most. Those are kind of the top ones. The other one that I've really liked recently is Superpowered, which kind of just tells me when I have another call coming up, which is just really useful when you get stuck on one thing, and then next thing you know, you're like 5 minutes late for something else, and this kind of reminds you without being annoying, which I appreciate.
Nice. We'll put that in the show notes. Amanda, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Fiveable?
Yeah, so I would say the best place is to follow me on Twitter at Amanda Doamanda, and at fiveable.me is our website, and we're going to be hiring and looking for folks that want to join on this mission.
Also, we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.